Hi there, I'm still Noah Baerman, but now I'm a piano player who is just delighted to get to play with these extraordinarily fine musicians. So on bass, the secret weapon, except I say that all the time, so it's actually not a secret anymore, but the stalwart who keeps it all going, Henry Lugo on the bass. And we are delighted to have joining us on drums today from Puerto Rico by way of Berklee College of Music in Boston, with a stop last night in New York where they played a gig that ended at like 5 a.m. But they are road warriors, so they made it happen anyway. Please put your hands together for Héctor Falu Guzmán. And we are so delighted, joining us all the way, and I'm not just making this up to be dramatic, but joining us all the way from Tennessee, having made the same stop in New York en route, one of the truly great saxophonists active on the scene today. Please put your hands together and give a warm Middletown, Connecticut, Russell Library, jazz up close welcome to Gregory Tardy. Thank you so much. Greg, is there anything you want to tell us about the either musical or extra musical inspiration behind that song? We haven't even told them what it's called for that matter.
Okay. Yeah, I'll talk about both. This song is called "The Message and the Miracle." I'll say that musically, this song was supposed to be different than what it turned out to be. I was writing something that was supposed to be a little bit more modern-esque, for lack of a better way to say it. But I was actually in China touring with Willie Jones III when I wrote this, and Rick Germanson, it's a great pianist, great pianist. He was in the room next to me, and he was the walls were really thin. And he was listening to Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers all day. And so, after a while, it just got infectious. So I just said, okay, all right, I'm changing this one. This was going to be more of a Blakey-esque song. So that's how that came about musically. And to be geeky about it, I was just trying to do something that was bluesy, but then would kind of move in and out of major to minor sounds. Trying to find elements of surprise in that. So that's essentially where that came from. As far as the title goes, The Message and the Miracle, I think all but two of my songs today have biblical significance, and in this one, I was just thinking about the various miracles that happened in Scripture, and just really thinking about the fact that these things weren't done for just like look, I'm going to pull a rabbit out of the hat, right? They all had like deeper meanings they all had deeper meanings, and so it just got me really thinking about that. You know, a lot of people catch the miracle, but they don't catch the message in the miracle. So that's what that one's about.
Thank you. So now is the point where if we have any questions, we can open up to those. And if not, we'll play more tunes, and then there will be questions. Yes, Steve, go for it.
If you had 3 desert island influences, who would they be?
As far as musically or just
Saxophone specifically.
Okay, definitely Joe Henderson. I love Joe Henderson. Yeah. The thing I really dig about Joe Henderson was that he's someone that obviously knew the whole tradition of the music. He definitely had his own voice, but he also was flexible enough that he could play within a lot of different styles and be able to play and sound like he's in that moment, but he's sounding very much like him. For instance, if you hear him play with Alice Coltrane and you hear him play with Horace Silver, completely different approach, but very, very much Joe. And so that's he's like someone I've kind of used as a template, so to speak. I would say as far as ballads and blues, definitely Ben Webster, because the guy's just so incredibly soulful and just so rich, just such a deep well of emotion. And if I had to pick one more, that's kind of hard. I mean, I went real old school. I went kind of in the middle, so I guess I'll pick someone from today. And that's kind of really hard because you've got there's some people that are really inspirational from a more of an academic standpoint, and there's others that are a little bit more significant because of their deep well of information from the historical point of view. I think I'd have to go with maybe Branford Marsalis, because Branford is somebody that, and he's like someone I used as a bit of a template too when I was first starting, even though he's only just a couple years older. I mean, I think he's in his early 60s and I'm in my late 50s, but he was out on the scene much sooner than me, because he started getting to be well known, I think, when he was in his late teens or early 20s, and I was just starting out when I was that age. So it's to make a long story short, I was a classical clarinetist and I switched to jazz saxophone, and so I kind of got to it late. So that's a long story. But either way, I was checking out Branford a lot, and I'm also originally from New Orleans, and so it's I moved away, but then I saw Branford and some other people coming out, and so I just kind of looked at him and said, wow, this guy is like really, he's really. He's got it all. He's got like that emotional side. He's got the academic side. He's got that. He can play like real super crazy free if he wants to, or he could play like super N and sound just beautiful. And it's I could go more, so I have to say if I had to pick someone, that's a tough one because there's so many great players. I love Chris Potter's playing and Mark Turner's playing and so many other people's playing, but I guess I'd have to pick Branford if I had to pick one. So. That was kind of a long-winded answer to your question, but I do tend to wrap
I
it.
guess you go all the way back into the Lester Young group, the Coleman Hawkins group. Which
Also Benn Webster straight down the middle. So.
Okay, if you want me to go there, I'd say Don Bias. Yeah, I think Don Bias is woefully underrated. If anyone doesn't agree with me, check out his solo on I Got Rhythm. And just analyze it and just for any musicians that are in here, transcribe it and just keep in mind when it was recorded. And I think I think I can make a pretty good case there. So.
Right on. Thank you. And there's a few scattered seats around here if there's folks who are standing and would prefer not to be. Do with that what you will. And we're going to play another tune. You want to set this one up, Greg?
Okay.
Intelligence.
That stuff is all out. Okay. Once again, as I said before, a lot of my songs have biblical significance. They're inspired by the Bible. They don't have. Well, you don't understand. Someone's saying like, man, he's got an incredibly big ego. This one, I was just thinking about the awesomeness of creation and all, like just even now when you just look around and see all the, it's kind of strange right now because it's almost 80 degrees outside and the leaves are falling. But even though it's just so beautiful, and if you look at the Grand Canyon or you look at the huge sequoia trees out in California, it's so much, and look at the stars and look at all the beauty of the ocean. Think about like how awesome like all this creation is, and to think about that God made it all. So I called this one For the Intelligent Designer. And this one features Noah.
So this is what we call in music a coda. You know. Do we know where that's? Okay, well, do we have any more questions at this time? Did that last one inspire questions that had not yet manifested 10 minutes ago, or however long it was that we began that one? Yes, please. Thank you. Praise God.
Could you share what your practice regimen is in relation to composing, and then how does that change from you?
Okay. Well, that's a little bit embarrassing to admit, but I love writing music. I love writing music, but unfortunately, because of my schedule, I also teach at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, and so I've got my students there. I've also got family. These things are all blessings, but the point is that I really don't have that much time to write, and so I tend to not write music unless I have a deadline. And so it's I can go months, half a year, something like that, without writing a single note, and then all of a sudden my producer will say that he'd like me to do a project, and so then all of a sudden I get really motivated, and then all of a sudden I just start going ballistic and just start writing all this stuff. So that's I know that's not for any music students here. Say that, yeah, just do as I say, not as I do. But I'd say during the pandemic I wrote a lot of stuff though, because it was, I didn't have any gigs, and I was teaching all online. I had a lot of extra time. And since I didn't have any gigs, I figured that if my chops go down on the saxophone, no one's going to care. So I wrote, and so I actually wrote a whole suite. I wrote a for a 10-piece group with a 10-piece group with strings and brass and all this stuff. It's a suite that I wrote based on the book The Pilgrim's Progress. And if anyone wants to know anything more about it, I've got there are a couple of videos online about it. So you just type in Gregory Tardy and either The Journey or Pilgrim's Progress, and you can see more about that. But I'm hoping to record that soon. These things all take money. So just trying to get the finances for that. And but as far as my actual practice regimen, when I do it, I have I get ideas all the time, and so like either after a gig or something like that, and I'll start tinkering around on the piano, and an idea will come to me, or I'll be in class and demonstrate something, and all of a sudden, wow, that might be a good idea. So then I'll go and I'll record it on my phone. Before we had these things, I used to just write stuff down, and I had this big bin full of things that it'll be like little motifs or maybe a little progression or something, and then I'd come back to it later and make sure that I write a lot of instructions on there, because a lot of times I'll write something down, but if I don't write instructions, then I can't remember what it was about, and so then I wind up having to do something different with it. But I'll go back to those things when it comes time to do a CD. I'll go and I'll take a couple of those little motifs or little progressions, and sometimes I'll mix them together. Sometimes I'll just sit and try to think about some logical ways to put it together. Sometimes I'll write some contrafacts. That's like if you take an existing song and you take an existing song and then change up the melody or arrange it in some kind of way so it becomes a different song. We've got one of those coming up, actually. Why
don't we, if you don't mind, I'll get to your question after the next tune, because I think that's the perfect segue to introduce this next one.
Yeah, it's how many jazz musicians are here? Okay, maybe we won't say what song this is. I think we can
go ahead.
Okay. All right. Well, the song is actually written for. Are any of y'all familiar with a pianist named James Hurt?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a great friend of mine. We actually, when I first moved to New York, James and I and Russell Gunn and Sherman Irby and a bunch of other guys were all kind of crammed up in a little spot over in Brooklyn, in Fort Greene, and we used to play together a lot back in those days. And so I decided to write something for James, and this is something entitled Mr. Hurt, and it's a contrafact. It's a contrafact off of a song, I think. Okay, I'll say it. All right. And what is this thing called Love? So hope you enjoy it.
Héctor Falu Guzmán on the drums. And while you're at it, how about it for Henry Lugo on the bass? Well, shucks, that was fun. So we had a question here that was patiently held on to. If it's still, yeah. Do you remember? Oh, no.
I have another question I was posing. So teaching and music, I teach was in university as an artist, and that interaction between students and my own practice. I was wondering if you had anything to say about how you see teaching and composing and playing interrelated to each other.
How do they work with each other? The main thing that I find is the more that I teach, I guess I'll put it this way: is that I'm more or less not completely self-taught, but I'm mostly self-taught as a jazz, for lack of a better word, as a jazz artist, and compositionally I'm completely self-taught, and it's and so there are a lot of things I just kind of stumbled across by just studying other people's musics, and some things I just heard. I think because I was raised with a lot of opera. My parents were both opera singers, and so I had a lot of Puccini around the house and things, and so I think a lot of stuff kind of marinated, and so then I just find these things coming out in my playing. But I find that the more that I teach, and the more that I have to explain what I do, both playing-wise and compositionally-wise, it forces me to do some homework. And I actually have to study to try to figure out some of the things I do. And I mean, I'm just being completely honest. And then the more I study, and I'm like, oh wow. I mean, a good example of that is I've got this song called "The Night Traveler," and it's written off of these major sharp 5 chords, and it's and when I recorded it on the CD, "The Hidden Light," back in 1999, it's. I didn't realize that was like part of. I didn't realize that was like the third mode of the melodic minor scale. And had I known that when I recorded that, I would have played it a lot better. But it's but I worked. I had some things that worked, and I felt good about it. But it's like the more that I learned, so basically. As I was teaching people about the melodic minor modes, and all of a sudden I find this, I'm like, oh wow, it's and that just opened up a whole new world for me. So I do find that teaching helps my playing, that teaching helps my composing, and so I don't know if you feel the same way, but that's been more of my discovery. So that's how they interweave with each other. So.
When you're teaching, are you teaching music theory or are you teaching saxophone?
I'm doing, I teach, I have saxophone students. Every now and then I get a clarinet student. And I also teach, I teach a jazz improvisation class. I also teach a jazz composition class. And I also teach some small group ensembles. And yeah, another class for music ed majors. So that's jointly taught by a bunch of us. Yeah, so that's pretty much what I do over at UT. So.
I was wondering, I was an art major, and I was majored in sculpture, but people with different majors. So I was wondering what students you're teaching, what body of students you're teaching. It's specifically music theory or saxophone or what?
It's mostly jazz majors, jazz performance majors. But every now and then I'll get a classical major that wants to study a little bit more jazz, or I'll have some people that are just I'll have some people that want to audit my improv class. They may be people that were in maybe they were in their jazz ensemble when they were in high school or something like that, and just wanted to learn a little bit more. So.
I don't think you need to play jazz to take improv classes. I think everyone in the world needs to go improv.
Yeah. Amen. I'll amen that.
All right, well, yes, go ahead.
I have a question for Victor, right? Hector. That was close. So I've noticed that you're a lefty. Yes. So did you learn on like righty kits, or like how often, or if ever, do you play on like right-handed drum sets? And would you recommend like a righty drummer learning a left-handed drum set?
Okay, well, being a left-handed drummer is very interesting. There's like one every 200, so every session you go, it's like, sorry, I'm just a kid. They look at you like, what are you talking about? Do you read backwards too? So the way I started was as a kid, I kind of just always liked percussion. My parents, they found this little kind of drum school, and my drum professor back then, I was like probably 6. He said like, when you're left-handed, right-handed, and just sat me on 2 different righty kit, lefty kit, and we were actually talking about this. I didn't necessarily at 6 years old knew which one was better. Both were uncomfortable, but at 6 years old, you know. But I just kind of, I felt kind of nicer just by a little bit in the left side. I would say that because of almost every drum set being right-handed, there's been some moments where I get to fake it. Open-handed, but feet are crossed, which is very interesting. It's like a lot of weird balancing things. Your hi-hat from your left and your kick foot, you kind of use different muscles to focus on that. So like your kick foot might be a lot heavier when you're moving it than your hi-hat foot. At least that's what I perceived, especially when I switch. The moment I like try to kick and it's a hi-hat, you're like, what did I you might feel like sometimes I've broken the hi-hat. I have not. It feels like I did. That'd be too expensive. But I'd say it has given me a lot of chances to think about, well, what if I switch my hands at least? There's someone who's based around here who does both, and he switches from left to right and it's like, how do you do this? That's a lot of years of training. I would say definitely get, at least in hands, getting the ability to do both helps, because first of all, if there's any moment of something fell down, you can simply switch and pick it up. Many moments where it's just utility-wise very great. But also it gives you new ideas on how to orchestrate things, especially even switching things on the kit, switching where the ride is, like just moving slight things. If not fully just changing what hands you use to focus on, just switching where things are, or like positioning things different ways. It helps you kind of move out from what you're used to, and okay, this is a new space that I need to walk on. How do I do this? So I'd say it's a nice thing to do maybe once a week, maybe once a month, like whenever you can, just switch it and feel it out. Because I think it's you're playing the other way around. It changes the way your body perceives the instrument. It's a pretty interesting thing to do once in a while.
Thank you. So I think we're going to play a beautiful ballad now. Do you want to introduce this one, Greg?
Yeah, I have. I am very happy to say that my wife and I, we've been married for 27 years, and we've been married for 27 years. We've been together for 30. I'd say that she's her together with my kids are the biggest blessing that God's ever given me. She's my best friend, and so the song is called Janel's Love Song. So.
Thank you. Do we have more questions at this moment? Sure.
I'm just curious. I noticed you're the only one that doesn't have any written music. How do you, like, how long have you been rehearsing this, or how do you do this?
Put on the spot. Well, first of all, I'm a big fan of Mr. Tardy's music, so when you listen to it enough.
So you're familiar with it?
Definitely. Some of these, only two of these we played yesterday, and we played a couple of months before, so I've been practicing them for a while. And another thing is, I guess, I don't know, there's, so in both, my hometown, my school, and in Berkeley, there's a lot of focus on ear training, on just learning. Of course, I like when drummers read and know how to read, because that, and I've read these before. I look at the sheet, I look at the chords and the melodies, they're very important. But I know for myself that if I stare at the paper, I'm going to stare at the paper for the entire thing. I have a classical percussion background, and so I've been trained to, there's paper in front of me, you need to know what's happening in the paper, you need to know what's happening in the group. But, so for me, especially when we're talking about improvisational music, I like to know as much as I can and then follow what's happening in the bandstand, pretty much. But there's, I'd say a lot of ear training, a lot of learning the melody, singing the melody, even though I can't play the melody, it's internalizing as much as you can what is happening melodically, and then, what is happening harmonically below that. The drums, the way I was taught, it's a preference, but the way I see music a lot is kind of melody first, because you can just sing by yourself and that's a song. What is happening harmonically below that, and then where do the drums fit inside of all that? That's the way I see it, only because in drums are very important because they can change how a song works, how a song feels, etc., etc. But for me, I like to know the other two first, because I can figure out the drums thing later. But if melody and harmony I don't have, and I don't know what's going on, it doesn't matter how much of anything I can play, I'm always going to be lost. So internalizing melodies and like, what's the form, what is this? After a while, after you hear enough music, you build patterns on, this is how you lead up to this is how you lead up to this is how you lead up to this. But it's that, and I just have a really great memory for music, terrible memory for a lot of things, but music I can remember lot of music and a lot of standards or tunes. It's a blessing. It's a gift, which I'm very grateful for, because if not, I could not remember so much music. But yeah, it's also a lot of fun.
Thank you. And I guess there has to be one moment where I become didactic and start no-explaining things, and this appears to be that moment. A beautiful thing that's happening, and he'll probably be embarrassed, so I won't actually point out where he is, but Héctor and his friend Domas, a wonderful pianist, were playing with Greg last night at a jazz club in New York called Smalls. And it's a really beautiful example of something that has historically been really important to this music that there's been less of as there are fewer gigs and just sort of a change of the scene, but this sense of apprenticeship where a young musician who wants to really learn how to play this music at a high level and in an authentic manner tries to get with, I'm not going to call you an elder because you're not that much older than I am, but with established, mature musicians. And part of the sort of pact that goes along with that is that these young musicians learn the music really well. You know, you hear, I was thinking of Ralph Peterson Jr. talking about how he would, if he wanted to play with an older musician who he admired, he would learn all their tunes, not just like, yeah, I can kind of play the drums, but like deep study of that music. And it's interesting. I've used the analogy before. Hopefully this doesn't sound sacrilegious to you, Greg, but like going into this music really is like going into the clergy. Some of you have heard this analogy before, so forgive me for repeating myself. Regardless of your personal faith system, like you don't do it because you calculate the hours and the pay and determine that relative to other vocations, it's a really smart idea to do this. You do it because there's a sacred calling and you choose to answer it. And part of that is that the amount of attention you devote to the music may seem out of proportion to the more concrete earthly rewards, and yet it is a necessary investment to have those moments where you can tap into these more transcendent rewards, which hopefully some of you are feeling from where you sit there, passive transcendent rewards. I'm itching to play this next one. And then we've got one more chance after that for questions before we got two more. And so if you have any questions you're itching to ask, file them away and be prepared for the moment of opportunity that will come, however long it takes us to play this beautiful and challenging tune.
Oh!
Okay.
The other beautiful and challenging tune that remains.
That was super close.
Now, as we're about to try to play polytonal.
That's a weird tempo.
I think he was waiting for me to play the intro.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much. So before we play our last one and I do my little last song spiel, do we have any more questions? Okay, Steve and then Kate.
I got kind of one for both of you.
Oh my.
Jazz always has had, to me, there's this mentorship, there's a sense of stewardship of the music. Where do you see, I should say, your thoughts on the importance of mentorship and stewarding this music?
Yeah.
The way Art Blakey had a farm for 40 years where these musicians could go in and he grew them to the next level. No other genre is like this. What are your thoughts? Because you're both teachers and you're both jazz musicians. The importance of keeping that going so that 20 years from now, you know.
You're feeding us a softball, Steve. Yes, it's important.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say as far as the way I look at it, I've been very, very blessed. I mean, on one level, I said that I was mostly self-taught, but on the other end of it, I know that I've had some really great opportunities to play with some of the great masters and some architects of the music, such as the great Elvin Jones. I was in his band for what was it? Okay, I was in his band for about 2.5 years, and I played with the great Andrew Hill. I was in his band on and off for about 8 years. I also did stuff with, I can say great before all these names, but Tom Harrell. I was in his band for several years, and who else? I'm presently still playing with Bill Frisell on a semi-regular basis in his various bands, and I did a gig with Jay McShann. I've done I could name all these people that I've been able to play with over the years, and I learned so much about composition from just studying Tom's music, and so much about swing and about pacing and stuff from just playing. It's not like they were sitting there saying Greg, you have to do this and you have to do that. It's more like you learn things intuitively just by being around them and by picking up stuff. And so I've had those opportunities, and so I feel like they could have just said, well, when I was playing with Elvin, for instance, Joe Henderson was still alive, and so many other great, he could have, asked Jerry Bergonzi to play with him or somebody. All these great saxophonists are around, but he decided to use me. I was I felt very, very green, and so and I'm sure there were some nights where he probably wanted to put cotton in his ears, but I wouldn't be the player that I am today if I didn't have those experiences. So yeah, of course, when I have opportunities to pour into younger people coming up, particularly if they've got a love for the music, but they also have their good character, then I definitely want to pour into that, because I know that they're going to be great people for the next generation and great people for the music in general. So that's so I don't know if that and that goes for when I'm using young musicians on my gigs from wherever, or when I'm teaching and over at the University of Tennessee. So
I guess I will just briefly say that that the essence of what I do as an educator, whether it's with the literal students, some of whom are here today, or just in general trying to help people understand things better, it's an intergenerational music, and it is an alive music. This is not just drawing attention to some kind of museum piece that has lost its present moment relevance. And I'm really fortunate to have had mentors, both in the classroom and on the bandstand, so to speak, who helped convey that. Kenny Barron didn't sit down and put me through a curriculum of a sort of boilerplate sequence of events. We played tunes, and when something I did wasn't happening, which was most of the time, he would kindly but honestly help draw attention to that, and that's this music is not for the thin-skinned, or at least participating in it, but that's most beautiful things aren't, I suppose.
Sharing in jazz that doesn't exist. I think.
Yeah, or I think it exists sometimes, but it is embedded in the culture here. I mean, the sense of reverence for the history. You know, if you play in a punk rock band now, nothing wrong with punk rock, you're not expected to have reverence for the Sex Pistols. You know, being indifferent to the past is sort of part of that vibe, and here, quite the opposite is true. So we have one more question, and then we're going to play one more
I
tune.
think about opera, you know. Did they also listen to jazz, or did you listen to a lot of opera growing up, and then at one point?
Oh, that was just a part of our lives. I mean, my mother was very, 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 very serious about her opera career for a while until I guess we took over. But but it just always would be in the house, and she there was a certain point where she wanted me to be an opera singer, and so she told me a lot about the music, and she actually had me skip out of school one day. And we sat and we listened to opera all day. It was one of the best days of my life, and and it was and so all that music from Toronto and all that. I mean, I know that stuff very well. That was just what I grew up on, and also being the youngest of, like I've got a brother and a sister, and they both played musical instruments. So it's just. And they both were into that. So it was just, we used to go to the opera rehearsals. I was actually a child extra in a couple of, I was in Manola Scout, and also I think I was a child extra in Aida. So that's just a part of. But the thing that, if I don't like the way I sound on the saxophone, then I can always look at it and kind of just go buy another one, right? And but if I don't like the way my voice sounds, I'm just kind of stuck with it. So it's like I have I'll say that I have how do I say this? Actually I probably shouldn't say that. Let's just say I don't feel like I wasn't given the same gifting that my parents did. So as far as a vocal thing.
Well, so I'm going to be extra micromanagey here because we were actually supposed to be done by now, but I think we all want this additional tune to happen. However, I also promised that we would vacate this room and the library by 5 o'clock. I mean, we'll have to take a break down. So here's how it's going to go. I'm going to introduce the band, you're going to go, yay, and then we're going to play the tune, and then you're going to go, yay, and then you're going to say quick hellos, and then you're going to leave. Which sounds dismissive, but it is for the greater good. I hope you can agree with that. Héctor Falu Guzmán on the drums. Henry Lugo on the bass. And if you want to hear more of this, I encourage you to say a speedy but remunatory hello and farewell to Gregory Tardy and buy some of his CDs. His records are super happening, and you want to have them in your home. And if you want to know about other future events and so on, and you're not already on the Resonant Motion and or my mailing list, it is back there, conveniently located by the punch bowl. Full, it's not full of money yet, actually, but hopefully it will be soon. So, Greg, you want to give an intro to this tune?
This song is it's based off of something that Jesus said. He talked about like how you can tell a tree by its fruit, comparing that to people, right? Because you don't pick oranges from apple trees. And so forth. The same as someone may say they're this kind of person, but you can see who they really are by the fruit of their life. So this song is called "A Tree and Its Fruit." So hope you enjoy. It's also it's got a very, very hard piano part. So give me kudos for. Yeah.
I'd like to point out, at this point, I guess I can reveal that the four of us together rehearsed for about 15 minutes total. So I think it's working out okay.